Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
This episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Cryptek. Guys, I'm super stoked to be partnering with Cryptek, and I love the fact that I share the same ideals with them. I love the fact this company is veteran-owned, American hunter patriots. It's awesome. I also love the fact that they make top-notch hunting gear, and they offer it in killer camo patterns that are going to keep you concealed across a huge range of environments and conditions. So guys, if you're looking for more gear, get out there and check out Cryptek. Hey guys, Todd Helms with Wingmen by Eastmans, here to announce or introduce to you the Wingmen School of Strut. We got talking about turkey hunting tips and thought it'd be cool to break down my top 5 turkey tips and call it something catchy, the School of Strut. This is brought to you by our great partners over at Cryptek, at Federal Premium, at Weatherby, and at High Mountain Seasonings and Leupold Optics. I'm going to break down my top 5 turkey skills for you, so when you're out chasing birds this spring, you've got a little bit more to draw on. I think some of these are going to surprise you because I'm over 35 plus years of hunting turkeys. I've learned a thing or two, and I do things a little differently than some folks out there, and it helps me find success no matter if I'm hunting turkeys in the Midwest or out here in the Western states, which is where I focus most of my efforts. So come on along as we break down these top 5 skills in the Wingmen School of Strut. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingmen Podcast. And as you can see, this one's solo today. And what I want to do on this podcast is break down 5 turkey hunting tips that I've learned the hard way over the years, from everywhere from hunting where I grew up back in Michigan when I first started hunting turkeys when I was a young man, to the lessons that I learned every spring out here in the West and other places that I go. It seems like I get asked a lot, if you could just simplify turkey hunting, I'm just getting into this, or man, I've been doing this a long time, but I'm running into this scenario. What are some tips you could give? Well, I'm going to go through the top 5. But guys, before I get into that, I want to give a shout out to our partners and the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank Weatherby. I want to thank Cryptek. I want to thank High Mountain Seasonings, Federal Premium, and Leupold Eyewear. Guys, these are all phenomenal brands that I trust and that I believe in. And quite honestly, they make it possible for us to bring you content like this podcast and our video series as well. And so if you're looking for a gun, if you're looking for ammo, if you're looking for optics, clothing, or you want to take that bird or birds that you harvested over the past few months and turn them into some mouth-watering recipes, check out all the stuff that those sponsors provide, guys. They're top-notch. They're great people, and I'm super thankful for them. And it gets back into building relationships with people that you enjoy and people that you like. Not only do I feel like they're great brands and they have great products, but they're great companies. They're great folks as well. And at the end of the day, if you're doing business and interacting with people you like, life's good. So, that said, let's jump right into Todd's top 5 turkey tips. That sounds corny and maybe a tick cliched, but we're going to run with it. I've got these ranked in order of importance in my mind. Things that I've learned over, I don't know, how long has it been? 30 years of turkey hunting turkeys. I've been doing it since I was 12, completely self-taught. Back when I started, when I was a young man, there wasn't the resources available that there is now. Now you can jump on YouTube and check out videos. You can go online and read blogs. You can listen to podcasts like this one, and the resources seem endless. And honestly, I think it's gotten harder to figure out what the good information is than it used to be. There's more information, which is a good thing, but you got to kind of filter through that. So I'm going to break these all down for you. And the number one skill for turkey hunting that I honestly and truly believe in is patience. And guys, I wrote a blog about these as well. It's on the Wingmen website, and it's available by signing up to our Wingmen newsletter called Wing Beats, which is a free newsletter, and you get it once a month. And I break down all kinds of cool stuff in blogs. There's videos, there's podcasts, there's all kinds of cool stuff in that. So go to the Eastmans homepage and find the Wingmen tab in there. It's under Learn, the Learning tab, and go down and you can sign up for that Wing Beats newsletter. So, shameless plug out of the way. Here we go. Number 1 turkey skill is patience. Patience, patience, patience. In short, guys, patience kills. And what do I mean by that? Well, we've all had this scenario. We strike a bird. Maybe I don't care where you are. If you're in the Southeast, you're in the Midwest, or you're out in the West, or maybe on the plains. You strike a bird, he gobbles. Eastern birds gobble a couple times. These Merriam's birds can get fired up and get pretty hot and gobble a lot. But he doesn't come right away. And maybe it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, up to an hour, sometimes more, and the bird's not coming. Maybe if you're really lucky, he's still gobbling at you, and he's getting closer, but he's doing it slowly. He's probably got hens in that scenario. Or let me walk you through a scenario from a few years ago in Montana that was the longest I've ever sat out a bird. Before I jump into that, though, if you strike a bird, back to that original scenario, if you strike a bird and you get him going, he knows where you are. He knows exactly where you are. Had a podcast earlier with Dan Compton from Federal, and one of his turkey mentors, the guy that taught him how to turkey hunt, explained it this way. If you dug a hole, stood or sat in the bottom of that hole and called, struck a gobbler, and you were down in the bottom of this hole, he'd come over eventually and look in that hole. He knows exactly where you are, to the foot. Your job as a turkey hunter is to paint a picture without tipping him off to too much detail of where you are. What you want to sound like is a hen that's receptive, and it's kind of hanging out. Not stuck in one spot, but hanging out. He's going to come over eventually and give you a look 9 times out of 10. It might not be for hours. But the point is, if you give up on a bird, maybe he hasn't gobbled in 30 minutes. He knows you're there. He's going to come over at some point and check you out. If you leave, the jig is up, and you've missed an opportunity. This is especially important for you guys that are hunting smaller parcels in the Southeast or the Midwest or the East Coast. You're hunting smaller pieces of private land. Sit still. I love to run and gun turkeys, and out here in the West in wide open terrain, we have more ability to do that because we have more ground to work with, usually larger swaths of public ground or bigger chunks of private that we can kind of run and gun on. Run and gunning is a ton of fun. It's probably the most fun way to kill a turkey, but it's honestly one of the most difficult ways to kill a turkey. You guys that are hunting smaller parcels, maybe hunting the same bird multiple times, be patient with him. Give him time to come to you. Paint the picture. Sparse calling, kind of playing coy, some leaf scratching, little sounds. You know, if I don't have a bird, if I know he's still a ways off, I'll call like I'm kind of moving. Obviously, I'm not moving. I'm not a real hen. I can't get up and go to him. So I need to paint a picture. I need to get him curious and remind him that I'm here. I might wait 15 minutes between calling setups between calling sequences on a really stubborn bird, and I'm not giving him too much. I'm sounding like a contented hen who's hanging out, feeding, scratched in the leaves, purring, soft clucks, putts, some yelps every now and then. But unless he's just hammering like crazy and he's on a string coming to me, I get pretty quiet. Now, let me explain the most vivid scenario in my mind of this. In 2022, I I was in Montana, and we were hunting small public parcels spread out across in a river corridor. I didn't have the ability to run and gun a bunch, and we were using a boat to access these parcels. And finally, late in the day, it had been a long day of frustrating interactions with not a lot of action. I finally struck a bird, and we were on the very last piece that we were able to hunt for the day, working back down to the takeout, to the boat launch, and it was the last opportunity I was going to have. And we had several hours left it was late afternoon. I got this bird to gobble. We walked into this setup. I located with a hen yelp, and he gobbled. He was a long ways away, but he gobbled once. And I could tell he was close to, if not on, the private property that bordered this state piece and this chunk of public ground. And I thought, it's the last option I've got for the day. Let's wait him out. Well, he gobbled one time. One time. That was it. And I proceeded to kind of create a picture and real sparse calling here and there. I scratched in the leaves a little bit. Long story short, it took that bird 2 hours to come in. And when he did, he came in dead silent, and he poked his head out from behind this giant cottonwood tree at 20 yards. And he was right in my lap. Now, was I 100% dialed and ready? I was ready, but I didn't have the gun up. This is 2 hours, is a long time to sit there with a gun up. I had it in my lap. But he was at 20 yards. And I didn't really have a shot because he just poked his head out. That gave me just enough time. He went back behind the cottonwood tree, which gave us enough time for me to get the gun up and Dan Picard to turn the camera on and get it on film. And it was quick. And I thought, well, he's either going to come back out the other side of the tree or he's just going to turn and walk away. Well, he came back out the other side of the tree, and I killed him at 20 yards. The point that I'm making with that is not every turkey's going to commit to you and come in on a string. More often than not, heavily hunted and pressured turkeys are going to be more shy, especially as season winds down. This was middle of the season. These birds have been hunted hard. In fact, that bird actually had 3 other pieces of different types and sizes of shot in his body. He had a couple in his breast, he had one in his leg, and they were all different sizes and makeups. One was copper-plated like a 5. There was a number 6, and there was another one that looked like maybe a 4 or something in there, but they were all different and spread out. I was shooting Federal Premium heavyweight TSS 3-inch number 9s, and so I had one piece of shot that I found when I cleaned him later that evening, and it was obvious. But I was surprised to find that bird had been shot 3 other times. Probably too far. Guys taking shots they shouldn't have been taking, more than likely, and had not wounded him or crippled him because it was far enough that it didn't hurt him, but educated him for sure. And so he was really, really switched on. It was an older bird as well. The biggest Merriams that I've ever killed to this day. He had a 10.5-inch beard. He had one spur was broken off. The other one was about 2 inches long. He was a big, big, big Merriam's bird. If I would have not been patient with that bird and given him the 2 hours, which I normally wouldn't give a bird 2 hours, it was that specific situation dictated, I had nothing else to do. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to enjoy the spring woods, and I'm going to see what this bird does. And I think that mindset allowed me to take that bird. 9 times out of 10, after about 45 minutes, I'd have probably moved on. That bird would have come in eventually like he did, and nobody would have been there. If you don't give a bird enough time, and I'm talking about a bird that's answering you, that is maybe not super fired up, but he'll answer you every now and then, and he's kind of getting closer a little bit. He might be really taking his sweet time. If you get up after 15, 20, 30 minutes and leave, he's going to come in, and he's going to look for you. We see this on videos. There's a social media clip of a guy picking up his decoys, and a bird steps out in the road behind him. Didn't give the bird enough time. Be patient, enjoy the process, and give birds time to work into your decoys or your set. A lot of times when I'm hunting in woods, I don't even use a decoy anymore because it's one more thing I got to carry. And if I call a bird into range, he's got to come in and give me a shot to even investigate anyway, so I'm going to be able to kill him with or without decoys. But being patient and reading a bird's, what he's telling you. There was another time a few years ago where we had a bird, struck him, and was on the way into a spot we were going to camp. He gobbled to the sound of the truck coming in. We had the windows down, and I heard him gobble. And I remember telling the cameraman, it was me, Luke Washington at the time, we're going to kill that bird this evening. And he kind of, yeah, okay, whatever. And might have been a little overconfident, but I was pretty sure we could get back on that bird. So we went, took about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to set up our tent, get camp dialed, and we walked back down to where that bird was, probably a mile away, and I was able to strike him. Got him fired up. He came in by himself, but I don't know if he was by himself. But that was another one that took over an hour for that bird to commit. Thankfully, he was gobbling at me the entire time, and he was incrementally getting closer. He didn't want to leave the cover. He was in thick oak brush, and he didn't want to leave that cover. He messed up. He stepped out within effective range, but it was a poke. If I wouldn't have been shooting Federal Premium TSS, I wouldn't have even considered taking the shot. But I knew, because of the patterning I've done and everything and past experience, that bird was very killable. Took a shot, and I hammered him, smoked him, clean kill. But he took a really long time and a lot of finesse. He was communicative. He was gobbling at me, but he was really taking his sweet time. And I had to call over my shoulder, kind of change the direction of the sound. I did a lot of scratching, some soft purrs. I really had to coax this bird and really work him. And it turned out really awesome, and went home with a bird. Point is, patience kills. So that's tip number 1. Be patient out there with these birds. Don't get in a hurry. Enjoy the process and really just make memories out there. Number 2, and it's the same. I don't care if this is big game, waterfowl, is the number 2 tip that I can give you is your scouting. If you don't know where there's birds, if you can't find birds, you can't kill birds. And again, you can go in blind, you can run and gun, and it's fun, and you can do it. It can be effective. I've killed a lot of turkeys that way. But in today's world, I'm a family guy. I've got little kids. We're busy. We're running all over the place. I don't have the time to dedicate to a lot of run and gun hunting. My hunts I have to maximize my opportunity, and my scouting pays dividends for that. Out here in the West, our birds tend to be very visible from a long, long distance, and that's where good binoculars or spotting scope like the Leupold Optics brand pay huge dividends, guys. Use your binoculars. Even back like in the Midwest or the Southeast, you can find birds with your optics, driving around using your binoculars. Granted, they may only be a couple hundred yards from you, so in a field, or you can hear them in the woods or something like that. But I get up high out here, just like I would for elk. I get up high and I glass. If I'm in the mountains, I'll run ridges and I'll listen and I'll glass. And I'm scouting. I'm looking for those birds, where they are, what they're doing. Everybody wants to put birds to bed and hunt a roost. That's super fun. But I would rather let those birds, watch them for maybe a day or two and figure out what they're doing. And this is what I mean by scouting. It's more than just finding turkeys. It's figuring out what they do. A couple of years ago, I watched a gobbler for 3 or 4 days. And he kind of had a loose pattern, but he really wasn't committed to the same exact thing every single day. He'd fly down off his roost, and some mornings he'd go east, and some mornings he'd go south, but he never really did the same thing first thing in the morning every single day, like go out into a field and feed, or follow hens off a roost to a feed. He was It was later in season, and man, he was just running around looking for birds. But he had a loop. No matter which direction he went off the roost, by mid-morning, he was pretty much in the same general area. And it was in a small bottleneck, kind of a travel corridor. So instead of hunting that bird off the roost, instead of hunting that bird off the roost and having a maybe, I went in mid-morning, and I got on the travel corridor. I got in the bottleneck at its narrowest point that I'd watched him run 3 or 4 times, and I just set up. And it was open, so I used decoys and a blind, and I don't know, it was probably 9:30 in the morning, maybe 10 o'clock, and he gobbled off in the distance, and I thought, he's coming. And I didn't call to him because I was in his travel corridor, and I knew he was actively looking for hens. He gobbled again a few minutes later, and he was much closer, and then I yelped, and that's all I did. I yelped one time. Within seconds, he gobbled right back, and within seconds, I see his head. He sees the decoys. I never called again. He came walking right into the decoys, and I hammered him. If I wouldn't have paid very specific and close attention to what that bird was doing throughout the morning, I wouldn't have known exactly where to set up. And what I have found in scouting and in turkey hunting is that to maximize my opportunity, I don't want to make that bird work too hard. I want to be where he wants to be or where he's traveling through. That specific situation, he was traveling through a pinch point. When he walked through there, he was pretty much in range. It was only maybe 60, 80 yards wide. Now, I ended up killing him nice and close, which is ideal. But the point is, my scouting tipped me off to how that bird was utilizing the landscape. That sounds basic, guys. That sounds elementary and simple. But I am so surprised by the number of folks that just go willy-nilly and run around in the turkey woods, or, I saw a turkey over there the other day and I'm going to go hunt him. Take the time. Scout more than you hunt because it's going to pay dividends. If all you can do is slip away for a little while in the morning and look for birds, or in the evening and figure things out, I'd rather do that 2 or 3 times and figure out what those birds are doing so I can be prepared and ready for them and know exactly where I need to be than just going out and going into a spot blind. Now, like I said, back to the patience part of it, a lot of this is a patience game. Be patient in your scouting. Be patient in your setup. In the end, you're going to kill more turkeys by being patient and by diligent scouting, or with diligent scouting, than you will just running around chasing turkeys. I think back to my early days hunting turkeys, and man, I was all over the map. I would run and gun all day long. I'd find birds the night before, and I'd get right in on them the next day, and I killed a lot of turkeys doing that. But, man, I had a lot of fruitless hunts as well. But I learned. Now, in today's, where I'm at in life today, I don't have the time I did in my 20s to put into it, or even in my early 30s. I have to maximize my opportunities. That's where scouting pays dividends. Use your glass, put in the time, and figure out exactly what a bird is doing. If you can be where a bird wants to be, your calling is going to be 1,000 times more effective, because he doesn't have to work real hard to come over and find you. Pays huge dividends, guys. So scouting is number 2. And I've got my blog pulled up. That's what I'm going off of here. Number 3 is decoys. Now, I'm not too hung up on a particular brand of decoys. I have several different brands. Everything from Dave Smith decoys to the Avian X decoys. I think decoys across the board, they can work. They do work, but it's less about what kind of decoy you have and more about how you implement them. And I'm going to start with early season. It's right now we're sitting at the first full week in April, and turkeys there might be a little early breeding going on, but out here, like, we got an inch of snow last night here in Wyoming. And so our birds they're in very, very early season mode. And if you have an early season turkey hunt for your area, your scouting is going to show you what those birds are doing. Are they in big groups still? Are they working out dominance and pecking order still? Or are they 100% focused on breeding? That is going to dictate your decoying strategy. Early season, or when you see birds in large groups chasing each other around, being real super aggressive, man, that's when I go with a half strut, a 3/4 strut Jake, and a laydown hen, and maybe another full body hen, or a strutter with a laydown hen. Last spring in Montana, the video that's coming out, we're working on it right now, kind of goes hand in glove with this. We stepped into a kind of an early season scenario. It was cold, it was snowing, and in one day of hunting, we tipped over 3 really good gobblers in a very small area. The whole point of that was these birds were, through our scouting, we noticed these birds were really aggressive, chasing each other around, lots of fighting purrs going on. There was a lot of dominance establishment still happening. And so I knew exactly where I needed to be because they were all centered around one little spot, and I knew exactly how my decoy strategy needed to pan out or be set up. I went in with first thing in the morning. I went in with a Jake. To be completely honest, I forgot my real strutter fan for my strutter decoy. I forgot it in the camp or back at camp, so I was relegated to just using the Jake with a laydown hen. Didn't matter. As soon as the gobbler flew down off the roost that morning, took a little bit of sweet talk to get him to come over where he could see the decoys. He saw them, and he committed immediately. And he proceeded to Bruce Lee the decoy off the stake and then tried to breed the laydown hen for, I don't know, quite a while, 5 minutes. Got all the footage I needed. He was not going anywhere. He was like 10 yards, and we just let it play out. And when he had enough, he started to walk away. That's when I killed him. Later that afternoon, we came back in and set up a little ways off, not too terrible far, and I put out the whole flock, man. I put out a Jake, I put out 3 hens, one of which was a laydown, 1 feeder, 1 upright, and then the strutter with the real fan on it. And we proceeded to sit in one place and kill 2 more big mature gobblers. The first bird we killed slipped in completely quiet. I was doing some blind calling, just some yelping. We were in a blind. And he slipped in from behind us, never made a sound. It was just all of a sudden I heard the spit in the drum and looked, and he's like 10 feet outside the blind, going beelining it right into the decoys. Again, let it play out, let him do his thing, and Scott Reekers made a great shot, sealed the deal. We had 2 other guys in camp with turkey tags, got a hold of them. One of them came over, jumped right in the blind. We just swapped out quick, and within another hour, we had 3 toms come in. They took a little bit of coaxing, but they got fired up. They came right in, and they proceeded to gang up on the strutter decoy for 10 minutes until we had all the footage we needed. We enjoyed the show, and the other guy notched his tag. Really cool video, really great. But the point is, I was paying attention to what the turkeys were doing through my scouting, and that dictated how I was going to run decoys. 9 times out of 10, if I'm hunting open country later in season, we're moving past the early season where they're establishing dominance, and I'm hunting birds now mid to late season that are completely focused on breeding, I'm going to run a single hen. And I don't care what the body posture is on it, but a single hen, and I'm going to put it in a spot that's open and a bird can see it. Decoys only work, guys, if a bird can see them. And so when I'm hunting, when I am running gunning timber or thick country or real broken country, I don't bother with the decoy. I leave it at home. It's one of those things that it just weighs me down, slows me down, gets in the way, and I can set up my calling scenario where when a bird comes in and seals the deal and he pops up, he's going to already be in range. And I'm not going to have to worry about using a decoy. You got to kind of play that by ear and figure out, what your scenarios are. But don't just blindly be putting out decoys. Let your scouting dictate how you need to use your decoys and where you need to set them. Open country, I'm definitely using a decoy, probably a couple of them, maybe just one, depending on what I'm seeing. If I'm seeing a lot of single hens running around, I'm going to use one decoy. If I'm seeing groups of hens or multiple turkeys together, I'm going to run a group. I always want to run a hen decoy. In the middle of the season to the later in the season, for our western birds, Merriam's birds tend to be more lovers, not fighters. They're Romeos. I've had very little success running any kind of a male turkey decoy, whether it's a Jake or a strutter. When they see it, and they see it there with a hen, a lot of times mature gobblers are like, nah, I don't want to fight. They're looking for something easy. Now, those are Merriam's birds. Right to the end of seasons in places like the Midwest and Iowa, I've had great luck running a real taxidermied strutter decoy. The later it runs in the season, the more realistic your decoys have to become. My brother in Iowa runs a taxidermy strutter, a stuffer decoy, if you will, and it works amazingly well. Those eastern birds, man, they tend to be way more aggressive. They might not gobble as much as a Merriam's, but when you get one fired up, that they see that strutter and it lights something up in them and they come in. And so you can get away with more of that hunting eastern birds and Rios too. But out here in the West, I see too many guys running strutters later in the season or even Jakes, and they're like, man, this bird just doesn't want to commit. It's because he's looking for love, not a fight. So if you're hunting out west on western turkeys, Merriam's in particular, appeal to his love side, his breeding side, and not so much his dominant side in the mid to late season. Now, again, how do I differentiate that? Well, first of all, most of our turkey seasons across the country have been pushed later into the spring to really let those birds do their thing when they're really naive and really aggressive early, and you can kill too many turkeys easily. Game and fish agencies have figured this out, so they pushed seasons later into the spring when birds are more focused on breeding. And it's harder to kill them, but when you use the right decoy strategies and use a hen or a single hen or a couple hens and appeal to that passion side, that breeding instinct, man, I have way better luck decoying birds in mid to late spring with just a hen or two than I do with a strutter or a Jake decoy for that matter. Your scouting should dictate this depending on what you're seeing. Hey guys, this episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by High Mountain Seasonings. The folks down at High Mountain Seasonings in Riverton, Wyoming have had my business since before I started working at Eastmans and way before Wingmen was even an idea in my head. I've been making homemade jerky and sausage and you name it, snack and sticks with their kits for a really, really long time. Having the pleasure a couple years ago to go down and take a factory tour and film that and do a duck hunt with one of the guys from the company, Brian Tucker, was a pleasure. They have such a cool operation down there in Riverton, Wyoming, and to think that their product from little old Riverton spreads out all over the country and into Canada is mind-blowing. I know they do business internationally as well, but it's incredible to me. I can go in so many different places, from the local grocery store to any of the big box sporting goods stores, and find that product. I can go in, I can grab a box, I could take it home, and I can, within 48 hours or 72 hours, I can have some of the best goose jerky known to man. I can put that on a plate, and you wouldn't know it's goose. I mean, a lot of guys be like, wow, this is amazing venison jerky. And it's like, hey, thanks. Yeah, you're eating goose. Like, what? This is goose? Thank you, High Mountain Seasonings. It's not just jerky kits, though, that those guys do. They have a whole ton of products. So I would recommend that you go over to highmountainjerky.com and check out the full assortment of products that they've got down there in Riverton, Wyoming. So broken that down. Decoys. Talking about decoy placement, one of the things I see guys do way too often is a right-handed shooter will put the decoy on their right side. So what that ends up making you do is when a bird commits to the decoy, he's on your strong side. He's on your right side. So you have to move and pivot and shoot. You don't want to have to move. That's the number one thing that I see guys get birds to commit, and they don't get them killed because they have to move. Bird sees them, flies off, runs off, whatever. They don't get the job done. For right-handed guys, put your decoys on your left. That way all you have to do is pull the gun up, and the bird's right there on your left. It's very little movement. You're in it, bang, and it's over. Lefties, it's the opposite. You want your decoy set up on your right side. Now, sometimes you're going to just the topography and the lay of the land is going to make it so you have to set up a certain way. I'm going to pivot my body. If I have to put my decoys to my right, I'm going to pivot my body so they're right there. The point is, even with birds that are in the decoys, I don't want to have to move a bunch. Another note, if you get a bird that's close, he's inside of 40 yards, preferably inside of 20, and he's right there, I don't worry too much about my movement in the moment of truth. When a bird's focused on my decoys, yeah, he's probably going to see me, but if he's close, it's too late. I see guys all the time doing this, getting their gun up really, really slowly. Now, if you've got a bird that's approaching you and you're trying to do that, okay, I'd rather just sit still, let him finish, and then just one smooth motion, pull the gun up and shoot. He cannot get away from you in the amount of time that it takes for you to do this. He can't. If he's inside, if he's in close, inside of 20 yards, this is effective. This, you're being too cautious. Just mount the gun and shoot him. He's probably going to be focused on your decoys anyway, and he's going to see you, more than likely, unless he's really distracted, he's going to see you, but it's too late. By that time, you've got him. You've done your part. You've tricked him. Do it. Commit and do it. Don't be too cautious. Get the gun up and shoot him. Now, don't misunderstand me there. If I've got a bird that's working in and he's on the edge of range and he may or may not commit and I'm trying to get him closer, I'm not going to move at all. I'm just going to be patient and sit there. Or I'm going to already have my gun up and ready to go. But if you get caught, for lack of a better term, you get caught with your pants down, pull the gun up and shoot him. He's focused on your decoys, and that little bit of movement, he's going to see it, but it's going to be too late. So that's decoys, guys. Make sure your decoys are clean. On strutters, you have to use a real fan. I see guys using the plastic fans that come with these decoys, and can they work? Yeah, but you're going to decoy way more birds if you use a real fan. The more real turkey parts you can put on that, the better. Obviously, the best is a taxidermy bird, a stuffer decoy. That's the best. Nothing replaces the look of real feathers for a bird. The way they move in the wind, the way the light hits them, that's ideal. They're not great. They're fragile, and they're a pain in the butt to carry around. It's way easier to have a real fan or maybe some real wings on your strutter decoy and go with that. That's a must for me, having as much realism on my decoys as I can possibly get. All right. That was number 3, third turkey tip. Number 4 is calling. And guys calling is important. Yes, it is important. It is how we locate birds. It's how we pull birds to us. But I'm a turkey hunter and not a turkey caller. If your thing is turkey calling and you're really into it, that's great. You're probably going to be very successful out there. But being a great caller doesn't always translate into being a great hunter. You need to know when to use what calls to get a bird to commit. Now, the better you can sound, great. You want to be realistic. But listen to real hen turkeys. They don't all sound perfect. They make off notes. They do weird squeals and whines and all kinds of things. That said, the more turkey sounds you can replicate, the better. Over all the years that I've been doing this, I've really narrowed my turkey calling repertoire down to a yelp, sometimes a cut, depending on the situation. If I get a bird that's really, really hot, I can cut at them. and purrs and soft clucks. I want to sound like a contented hen who's feeding. So it's those little turkey sounds. Scratching the leaves if you can get away with it, movement-wise. Soft purrs and soft clucks, and then yuck, 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 a yelp every now and then. Eastern turkeys don't talk as much as Miriam's turkeys. You get out, I hear that all the time. Guys that hunt Eastern turkeys primarily get out in the West, and they're hunting Miriam's and Rios, and they're like, wow, these birds are vocal. Yeah, and I've heard hens make 15, 20, 30 note yelps before, where they're just going. Mimic what you're hearing. If you've got a hen that's yakking away and she's got a gobbler with her, or there's a gobbler in the area, the best thing you can do is carry on a conversation with that hen. Mimic her. Try to call over the top of her. Get her angry. Get her frustrated with you. If she comes to you and she's yakking and being loudmouth, she's probably going to pull that gobbler right with her. I've had that happen more times than I can count, guys, where the gobblers are so focused on the hens, on the real hens that can walk right up to them, that they're really not paying much attention to a hen that isn't coming to them. So then I switch my strategy to being aggressive with the hens and pulling those gobblers to me. Now, again, do I practice my turkey calling? Yes, not as much as I used to, but I've built in a level of proficiency through years and years and years of doing it, where I could grab a call, get it some runs in, get my notes down, I can go out and I can hunt. Even with aggressive turkeys and real vocal turkeys, most guys call too much. You can easily overcall, especially Eastern birds. You want to sound like a real hen, and if you're overcalling, you're just going to shut him off. He's going to know, no, that's a hunter. That's a hunter. I want to sound like what the hens he's around are sounding like. If they're really loud and really aggressive, that's what I'm going to be. If he's gobbling his head off to everything I do and he's coming, I'm going to keep feeding him what he is liking. If he's being more coy, I'm going to back off a little bit until I realize I need to do something different. And then I might ramp it up to see what he does, or I might just go dead quiet on him. So, yeah, calling is number 4. Being proficient with your calls is important. I don't have a branded turkey call that I like more than another. In today's world, man, if they're clean and they're in good working order, you can call in turkeys with any branded turkey call out there. Find one you like, find what works for you, and go with it. Now, types of turkey calls, that's a different story. Saw a post on social media the other day. If you could only have one type of turkey call, what would it be? Box call, pot call, mouth call, wing bone call, what are you going to use? If I could only have one, it's going to be a mouth call. That's for me. That's my style. I like to be light and fast. I don't like to have a lot of stuff on me. I stopped wearing a turkey vest years and years and years ago. Now, for you guys that are hunting more educated birds, maybe in the Southeast, you might need all these different types of calls in a turkey vest to be able to run through and figure out what he wants to hear. Most of the time in the Western states with Miriam's turkeys, I can get by with a mouth call 9 times out of 10. Put it in my shirt pocket and go. Cover ground, find birds. That's more important than the really dialed in turkey calling for a lot of the hunting that we do out here. When I do go back to the Midwest and hunt more challenging Eastern birds, I have a bunch of calls. But if I only could pick one, it'd be a mouth call. If I couldn't have a mouth call, it'd be a pot call. And I like slate pot calls, guys. Glass works, metal works, aluminum, whatever. They all work, but the slate, the original slate, there's just something about that sound that is phenomenal. Now, they do get wet. You do need to be able to rough up your striker with a piece of sandpaper, or I've gone to just a piece of Brillo pad, just a rough piece of abrasive pad that works for my slate and my striker. Works great. So mouth call, then a pot call, and the last thing I'm going to have is a box call. Out here in the West, we're dealing with turkeys that are in the wind and usually wide open terrain. the high pitch of a box call really cuts through distance and wind very, very well. And while I'm not good enough with a box call to be able to really finish turkeys with it, it's a great locator, man. I can and just reach out for a long, long ways and get a gobbler's attention. Locator calls, I carry a crow call, and in the evenings when I'm looking for birds, I'll carry an owl hooter. I've heard the coyote howl thing. I'm not a fan of a coyote howl on turkeys just because that's a predator. I've heard the hawk screech, that works, but again, it's a predator. During the day, when I'm looking for turkeys, man, I locate with a yelp. You got to be careful with that, because if you get a bird to answer you close, you just got to sit down and get ready, because he's probably already on his way in. And so locating with a yelp is effective. They'll gobble at it a lot, but you've got to be ready to shoot immediately. Don't make a call if you're not ready to set up and hunt. So that's calling in a nutshell. Again, I've got it number 4 because I think that patience, number 1, scouting, number 2, and decoy placement and usage are more important than calling. If my scout's dialed and I know what a bird's doing and I'm patient and I can put my decoys in a good, realistic scenario, a lot of times you don't even need to call. If you're set up in the right spot, the bird's going to see the decoys and he's going to come over and investigate. That's why calling's number 4 for me. I'm probably going to get guys that are going to be like, that's stupid. Calling should be number 1 or number 2 because calling's important. It is important, but it's on my list, it's number 4. It used to be higher, but the older I've gotten, the more I realize that it's not as important as those 3 skills before it. Number 5. Wait a second here. Oh, number 5. Yeah, and I've got it wrong on the blog. I need to fix that. I'll do that real quick. Number 5, guys, is gear. Gear. Guns, loads, camo, and calls. Let's stick with the guns, loads, and camouflage. Again, lots and lots of combinations that work. We could go into – this could be a podcast in and of itself. I've found over the years what works for me. I'm sure you've got the things that work for you. But if you're getting into this and you're new, it's easy to get overwhelmed. Guns-wise, you could shoot everything today from a 410, 28, 16, 20, or 12, even a 10 gauge. There's loads and guns across the board. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to grab a 12 gauge, good old 12 gauge. And I just use the 12 gauge I use across the board for everything. I screw in a turkey choke into it, something super full in that 640 to 665 constriction range, depending on the loads I'm shooting. And I go with it. I'm pretty picky on ammo. I've shot probably every turkey load under the sun over the years. And guys, I've settled on the Federal Premium heavyweight TSS 3-inch number 9 in the 12 gauge loads, 3-inch number 9 in the 20 gauge load, 3-inch 9s in the 410 load. I honestly think TSS has changed the game for turkeys. It's unbelievably and devastatingly effective. But for my loads that I'm going to grab, it's going to be that Federal Premium load. Guys ask me all the time, I want to shoot a 410. Go get a box of the Federal Premium 410 TSS loads. They're phenomenal. They're wicked. They work well through a variety of chokes. TSS tends to like to be more tightly constricted. Will a 665 constriction work? Absolutely it will. Will your standard full choke work? Yes, it will, as long as you keep your shots a little bit closer. I've even gone to the point where if I'm back in the days when I was reaping birds in my 20s, I shot an improved cylinder choke because my birds were going to be right in my lap. I was shooting birds at 10 feet. And with a turkey choke, super tight, man, it was easy to miss them. So I'd go with an open improved cylinder choke and whatever loads I had. And when they're that close, it doesn't matter. It's more important to have a more open pattern to actually be able to hit the bird when they're that close. But right now I'm running a Weatherby Storix shotgun. Ran them all year. for on waterfowl and a little bit of upland, and I've screwed a Carlson's TSS choke into it. The Carlson's choke was specifically designed for the Federal Premium heavyweight TSS load, and I've shot them. I've shot the Carlson's turkey choke in a bunch of different guns, and with that Federal Premium heavyweight TSS load, it is devastating. Out to, for me, 60 yards. I mean, TSS has changed the game. Lead, in my opinion, it was a 40-yard game back in the day, and that was a long shot. I liked everything closer. We all want to get birds right tight in our lap, right in the decoys, or really close. That's the goal of turkey hunting. And I do know guys that won't shoot a bird past 40 yards. In the reality of it, our opportunities in the turkey woods are deer. They come deer. Turkeys their numbers are diminishing. Our opportunities as hunters, days in the field might not be what they used to be. So I need to be able to maximize my opportunity. If I've got a bird coming, I'm going to let him come as close as he can possibly get. But if he hangs up at 50 yards, I know with that Carlson's tube and the Federal Premium heavyweight TSS load and the Weatherby Sorex shotgun that I'm going to pound him. It's not even going to be an issue. So that's gun and loads. Again, a 12 gauge across the board for me. 410's fun, but you are more limited with your range. 20 gauge is really effective. It's nice. You guys that cover a lot of ground, you do run and gun. It's nice. 20 gauge platforms are nice. They're light. They're compact. They can be a lot of fun. But yeah, the Federal Premium load is a hammer. Check them out, guys. You can find them literally anywhere, and they are awesome. A note on that. I hear guys, TSS is too expensive. Well, this is the way I look at the TSS loads, especially for turkey hunting. I'm going to buy one box of shells and maybe two, and yeah, it's a chunk of change. They're not cheap. This is the way I look at that. Once I get my gun patterned, and that's going to take like 1 round or 2 rounds. That gives me, in a box of 5, gives me 3 rounds to hunt with. That's 3 turkeys. Maybe 3 years of hunting. Once I get my system dialed, I get my red dots sighted, my turkey choke pattern, I got it all figured out. I got a little investment in time and money into that. Then I just go buy ammo. And if I buy a 5-round box of Federal Premium Heavyweight TSS 3-inch 9s, that's literally 5 turkeys. Ideally, 5 years of hunting or 5 turkeys. I'm willing to spend that. It's not like I'm out there shooting ducks where I'm shooting multiple rounds and those things. It's one shot and done if you're doing it right. So that's just a word about that, about ammunition when it comes to turkey loads. I'm going to spend the money and get the good stuff, get the best stuff that I think out there, which is the Federal Premium Heavyweight TSS. Camouflage. Now, there's a million different options out there. Instead of getting hung up on what and for what, obviously you guys see that I'm a big fan of the Cryptek stuff. Cryptek is a great partner of ours. This pattern I'm wearing, this undershirt, is the Obscura Transitional camouflage pattern. I love the Obscura Transitional for mid to late season turkey hunting when there's more green in the environment. It breaks up my outline. I can hide in plain sight with this stuff, and it is phenomenal. Earlier in the season, when there's not as much green in the landscape or maybe no green in the landscape, I'm going to go with the Cryptek Highlander camouflage pattern. It's their original camo pattern. It's still one of my favorites, and that's what I'm going to run. I don't worry too much about my legs. I usually wear a pair of solid color pants, usually olive drab pants. I really like the Cryptek Valhalla pant or the Bushcraft pant. Phenomenal stuff. Works great. But up top, from hands to torso to face, green, Obscura Transitional, anything more drab and brown, Highlander. Those are my picks. 100%. I love the Cryptek camo. Guys, check it out. They make all the layers you possibly need, and it's a phenomenal pattern. Calls. I'm not picky, guys, on brand. They all work. They They all do a good job as long as I do mine. I'm going to pick, instead of a brand, I'm going to pick a design of mouth call. I like triple reed, something with a V-cut, maybe a bat wing. I like having a lot of range in a mouth call. And then as far as a pot call goes, it's got to be just a regular old slate for me. And then a box call. I like a box call that is loud and high-pitched. And so I'm going to play with that in the store, and I want the highest pitch box call I can get. I'll sacrifice a little bit of realism in a box call for higher pitch, just because I'm using that box call as a locator or in a high wind or distance scenario. Optics. I said Leupold optics at the beginning, guys. I cannot stress how much I love the Leupold binoculars and spotters. They're clear, they're durable, they have an awesome warranty. They, obviously I hunt big game as well. I scout waterfowl with them. They work well across a wide range of scenarios. Go-to is going to be probably the Santium BX5 lineup in a 10x42 binocular. If I can only have one optic for turkey hunting, that's what it's going to be. A lot of times I'm running a chest rig with that binocular in it and just calls stuffed into the chest rig, and that's all I've got. I ditched the turkey vest a long time ago because I liked a more simple, streamlined approach. A lot of guys are like, no, you got to have a vest. That's fine. Do yourself a favor. Check out the Leupold optics and get a pair of those binos. While you're looking at Leupold stuff, man, the Leupold performance eyewear, the sunglasses, if you will, best I've worn. I've worn them all. I'm kind of an eyewear snob, and I've worn everything, all the different brands, you name it, all the high-end stuff to cheap stuff you get at the gas station, and then the Leupold performance eyewear across the board, different styles. The lenses, the optical quality, everything about them is just phenomenal, and I love them. So check those out. Decoys. Back to under the gear umbrella. Lots of companies make great decoys. If I could only pick one, I have a hard time beating the realism of the Dave Smith decoys. They're super spendy, especially the strutter is not cheap. But a strutter decoy is kind of one of those things that you're going to buy once. I'd rather buy once and cry once and have the best decoy I can have. And that, for turkeys, those Dave Smiths are awesome. There's lots of other brands that I've used and I still use, but, man, my go-to, Dave Smith. They are, you see them, you see lots of guys using them, and there's a reason for that. The realism for a plastic decoy or a molded decoy, if you will, is as good as it gets. And they're just phenomenal. Gear. That's kind of my top pieces of gear. Good shotgun like the Weatherby, great ammunition like Federal Premium Heavyweight TSS, a good choke. Find what you like, go with that. I like that Carlson's TSS choke for running the Federal. I love my Cryptek camouflage. It works across a wide range of scenarios for me. Obscure transitional when there's green, when it's brown or gray or drab, Highlander, hands down. That's kind of it in a nutshell, guys. So breaking it all down, again, just a quick review. Patience is your number one turkey skill that you can master. You can't kill birds if you're not sitting there waiting for them. Number two is scouting. You're only as good as your scout. If you can't find the birds, you can't kill the birds. Number three, trying to remember this. I've got it all right here. Where was it? Number three I said was decoys, and that has more to do with decoy placement. I love the Dave Smith stuff, but if you don't have Dave Smith's, pay more attention to how and where you're placing your decoys to mimic real bird behavior. Calling's number four, be realistic. Don't overdo it unless that's what the bird wants to hear, and you can tell that by how he's gobbling at you. If he's thundering and hammering back at you constantly, give him what he wants to hear. Otherwise, be coy, man. Paint that picture and make him come look for you and be patient. That's number four. And then number five, gear. Buy the best gear you can afford. I would highly recommend that you check out the gear that I recommended from our great partners. They make awesome stuff. We use it for a reason, guys. So that's it.
get out there. The most important thing I can tell you, get out there and have fun this spring. There's so much banter on the interweb about you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. Man, just go hunt. Be legal and be ethical and have fun, guys. Don't get lost in the shuffle. Get your kids out, get your family out, get your friends out. Even if you don't have any of that and you're hunting by yourself, go enjoy it. The spring woods are a glorious place to be, and I can't think of a better thing to do in them than chase turkeys. So I hope this helped. I hope it kind of gives you some impetus for success this spring, and you get out there and make some memories. Guys, while I got you here, check us out on all of our social media feeds, Instagram, Facebook. Leave comments, leave suggestions, leave likes. All that drives traffic and helps us bring you more great content like this right here. Recommend us to your friends. Say, hey, man, you checked out the Wingmen YouTube channel. There's some really cool stuff on there. We do that because we love doing it, and we like bringing awesome content to you. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you can get this podcast and others like it anywhere you get your podcasts. And hey, thanks for joining me this time. And until next time, we'll see you in the field.